Hello and welcome to week 2 of BCJS 4309 701, I think is the number that we're looking at. Yes, CCJS 4309 701 Applied Practices in Criminal Justice. I'm excited to be here today, but I guess I need to give a little bit of bad news, I guess. Um, Some of you may already know, it's been floating around. I have tendered my resignation from the University of Texas Permian Basin. This is my last semester with UTPB, and I am moving on. I'm moving back to the field. My background is in community corrections, and I have accepted a position as the director of child protection of the child protection team with the Children's Advocacy Center here in Odessa, and I will be uh, working there part time through the rest of the semester, and then uh, on May 15th, I'm just going to go full time, and I will no longer be a full time professor here at UTPB. I have given the opportunity, the option, to be an adjunct here. And to teach part time, but I am leaving that up to, or that is completely up to Dr. Harold Abrams, Dr. Richard Sachs, and Dr. Raj. Let me, so this is my last time teaching this class. I wrote this class. I built this class. I love this class. It's this class that helped me get the gig with the Children's Advocacy Center. So I'm excited about my future and my future with helping children who are victims of physical and sexual abuse. Uh, First, helping them to stop the hurt, to heal the hurt, and then to send the bad guy to prison and the prosecution. I'm really excited about this opportunity that I have. I'm hoping this will be the last job I ever have, and that I can do that until forever. As you can see in the background, things are disappearing out of your background. Hope probably by next week the wall unit won't even be there, and everything will be in my office over the Children's Advocacy Center. Um, Through at least through May, you can still contact me. As I mentioned last week, my office hours are going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8:30 to 10:45. But in that time, I'm also going to be doing these recordings on Tuesday mornings. You can call me after 6 p.m. If you need to talk to me and you need some help. You can call my office phone between 6 and 9 p.m. And I will answer the phone, and we will answer any questions that you have. So let's get moving. Let's talk about crime. What is a crime? And this week, I know you've got some assignments. You've got a quiz about the DWI. There's the criminal code is in your resources, and we need to. I think this tie goes really well with the shirt. Sorry, squirrel. So let's talk about what a crime is and the crimes. In the beginning, we had families. Okay, so way back in caveman days, families were the core, and families established the law. Family established the rules, and the strongest family won. Okay, and what would happen is the strongest family would become the king. Okay. But the head of the family was responsible for providing food, for protecting the family, for avenging wrongs that went against the family. Okay. And this would later be called the blood feud. And within the blood feuds. And then as families gathered together, they gathered in groups. Okay. So you'd have 10 families that would group together in a hamlet. And they would take turns protecting the group. And if the threat came, they would send out a hue and call, a weigh and call. They would call all the other heads of the families, all of the other men in the group, and they would go fight this bad guy, this entity. And then from there, we moved into societies, and we started codifying the rules, and that everybody had to follow the same rules. Hammurabi was the first person to create, to codify the law. This was back some 5,000 years ago. He had the five pillars of Hammurabi that established the obligations, well, the protections that the government would give. Okay, the government, the society, the rulers of the government are going to provide this to you as a citizen. You as a citizen are expected to relinquish these things, mainly vengeance. The vengeance would now become an issue of the state, and punishment for crimes would be an issue of the state, and you as a citizen, as an individual, as a person, would have to give that right up and let the state do it. So moving on to the United States, I'm skipping 6,700 years of history, but because we went through the feudalism and we went through the lords and the kings and the queens and the and the dictators and the emperors and the Caesars and all of these things to come to 1776 and to the Enlightenment period. And in the Enlightenment period in the United States, 1776, we had the United States, which would become the United States, declared independence from England. The colonies, the Americas, declared independence from England, and the Declaration of Independence uh, was a document that told the British Crown that in a time of tyranny, in a time when the government no longer represents the people, it is the obligation of the people to overthrow the chains of that oppression. And the authors of the Declaration of Independence listed 27 issues that the United States or the colonists had with England, and they sought their independence. Okay. 5 of those had to deal with jurisprudence and the way that criminal law was enforced and prosecuted in the colonies. And they opposed that and they wanted to go about. Caesar Beccaria, that is misspelled on the PowerPoint. Caesar Beccaria is known as the father of criminology. He is the first guy to start to focus on criminology itself and not as much as why people commit crimes, but the name of his treatise was On Crimes and Punishment. His paper was about how the state should respond to criminality. Okay. He believed in restitution and that the state should make sure or ensure that the victims of crime was restored to the way that they were. Okay. And this is one of the things that, I guess I'm a big believer in Caesar Beccaria because I believe in restoring things, restoring society, restoring the victim back to the place to where it was before. Okay. And I didn't build this PowerPoint as you're going through the PowerPoint. His name is John Locke, not Jason Locke. John Locke believed that everybody was inherently good. Okay. And that if given the opportunity, people can be rehabilitated and become better members of society. So my job with the Children's Advocacy Center is to conduct forensic interviews. It is the first step in protecting children, in stopping the hurt and healing the pain, or stopping the hurt and healing the hurt, and helping these children overcome the trauma that they have received in their lives, whether it was physical or sexual abuse. Okay. And part of my job is to follow through with prosecution to make sure that the offenders of these poor children are punished for what they have done. And Cesar Beccaria and John Locke both believed in restitution and rehabilitation. The United States uh, founded its criminal procedure off of these, but they also have a little bit of Thomas Hobbes in there. And Thomas Hobbes is the man. Okay. He's the guy that says that the mob can't be trusted. That's the best thing about the United States is it is a Republican form of government because the mob cannot be trusted, because if the mob takes over, mob rule reigns and people are destroyed. So within the state of Texas, in the Texas criminal law, we have two categories of law, and that's misdemeanors and felonies. Okay. And I'll get into those here in a minute. So our prison system within Texas, we pay about $62 per day for each inmate to be housed in prison, meaning it's about $95,000 a year that you, the taxpayer, the property taxpayer, and the sales taxpayer, pays to house each and every inmate in uh, a prison in the state of Texas. There are currently about 158,000, 159,000 inmates in prison, which gives us a $15 billion industry every single year. $15 billion every year is given to the prison system as a way to house criminals. So, that's a lot of money. I could go on a rampage about, you know, the prisonization of America. But that's a whole lot of people that are in prison. So let's break down the types of crime. The misdemeanor. And you're going to need to know this because the quiz that you're taking this week, you have to tell us the crime that's been and the punishment. Okay, so Class C misdemeanor is a fine alone not to exceed $500. A Class B misdemeanor is no more than 180 days in jail, and or included not a fine not more than $2,000. A Class A misdemeanor is no more than a year in jail, and a fine not to exceed $4,000. At the felony level, starting at the lowest level, it is the state jail felony. It's 180 days in jail, up to 2 years in jail, in addition to a possible fine not to exceed $10,000. And the state jail is day for day. There is no parole for a state jail sentence. So if you're sentenced to 390 days, you're going to serve 390 days. A third degree felony, it is the second lowest, second from the bottom, which is punishable by 2 to 10 years in prison and a fine not to exceed $10,000. A second degree felony is 2 to 20 years in prison, in addition to a possible fine not to exceed $10,000. A first degree felony is 5 to 99 years, in addition to a possible fine not to exceed $10,000. And then the most serious penalties is capital felony. It is punishable by life without the possibility of parole, or even in the state of Texas, it's the death penalty. So there are certain things that are required, and the district attorney must prove in every court case dealing with to prove a crime. The first is actus reus, which is a criminal act. Okay, so there are very few crimes that are just actus reus crimes. Doesn't matter what your mindset is, and one of those is pedophilia. But you must have an actus reus. You must have a criminal act. You must also have a mens rea. The mens rea is a criminal mindset. Okay, and that it was your intent to commit this crime. There must be a concurrence, and a concurrence is that both of these are occur at the same time. Okay. And if all three of these are in effect, that there was criminal intent, there was a criminal act, and they were together, then there was a crime that can be prosecuted. Again, there are a few crimes that only require the action, such as pedophilia. Um, then there's the causation, and the causation and why, what caused the crime, also determines or it has an impact upon your the punishment that is afforded to you. Okay, so for example, let's look at criminal homicide. It's Title 5, Chapter 19 of the Texas Penal Code. It defines homicide as a person commits criminal homicide if they intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and or with criminal negligence causes the death of an individual. Criminal homicide is murder, capital murder, manslaughter, or criminally negligent homicide. And there are some people within the Texas legislature that wants to attach abortion to this definition of criminal homicide, because the womb inside, according to them, the womb inside of the body, the life, the thing that's forming inside the womb of a body is a human life. And if you intentionally, knowingly, recklessly uh, decide that you're going to kill that, you should be prosecuted for some form of homicide. Intentionally and knowingly are defined. Intentionally is defined as that the person's conscious objective or desire to cause the result. You intentionally went to kill them or to commit this crime. You knowingly, the person is aware that the conduct is reasonably certain to cause a negative result. You knowingly, you know that it's going to be a crime. Okay? The short definition for intentionally and knowingly is that you did it on purpose. Okay? Recklessly is the person is aware of the threat, but consciously disregards that threat or that risk that any results will occur. You know, you know, you should have known better, but you did it anyway. For example, a couple of years ago in Big Spring, there were a bunch of teenagers. They were out in this field spinning donuts because it had just finished raining. And the fields were wet and muddy, and they thought it would be cool. And they were spinning donuts out in this field, and there were several guys sitting in the bed of the truck. Well, one of these guys fell out of the bed of the truck and then got run over. That's a reckless move. You knew that somebody could get hurt by spinning donuts in a field with people in the bed of your truck, but you did it anyway, and somebody died. That would be a reckless homicide. Negligent is a person acts when he ought to be aware of substantial and unjustifiable risks, and that negative result would occur. Again, you should have known better, but you did it anyway. For example, let's say that you suffer from seizures. If you have seizures, you're not allowed to drive, but you drive anyway. You know that there's a risk, um, but you ignored that risk and went and drove anyway. You had a seizure and then you killed 10 people. That's negligent homicide. Uh, Other words that you should know within the penal code: shall is mandatory. It must happen. May is permissible, meaning it can happen. Preponderance of the evidence is that this story is more likely true than the other story. Okay. It's 50% plus one. Probable cause is that which is more than mere reasonable suspicion, and it must be articulable. Okay. The belief of the police officer, law enforcement officer, is that a action would lead to a reasonable person, any reasonable person, to believe that a crime has been, is being, or is about to be committed. And the above can be stated in simple articulable facts. I went into the DK's to get a soda. There was a man standing there at the cash register pointing a 9mm at the cashier. Okay. That any reasonable person would believe that the bad guy was robbing the store and he was holding the cashier at gunpoint. This is an idea of probable cause. Okay, so all this is what it means to be the elements of a crime. So let's look at the death penalty code, because you do have some you have a quiz this week. So chapter 10, title 10, chapter 49 of the Texas Penal Code is about intoxication and alcoholic beverage offenses. Okay. There are several different laws that are covered under chapter 49. And there's some definitions, and this is there in Canvas. But what you're going to be looking at specifically today is driving while intoxicating. Okay, so driving while intoxicating, a person commits this offense if they're intoxicated while operating a motor vehicle in a public place. And they have a breathalyzer of 0.08 or better. If it's shown in trial, the offense under this section of analysis, the person's blood, breath, or urine showed a concentration of 0.15 at the time. It's a class A misdemeanor. 0.08, it is a class B misdemeanor. It is a class B misdemeanor. If it is 0.08, if it's 0.15, it's a class A misdemeanor, punishable by a minimum term of 6 days in confinement. Driving while intoxicated with a child passenger. This is considered a state jail felony. Intoxication assault is listed here. Intoxication manslaughter is listed there. And these are things that are on your quiz. So let's go back. And if you read this death, you can use this the DWI penal code to answer the DWI questions. I need you can copy and paste these questions, put them into a new document, answer the questions, and then upload the document into a new file. So what is the definition of being intoxicated? What is the defense to prosecution for intoxication? What is the punishment for DWI? What is the punishment for open container? What is the punishment if you have a blood alcohol of 0.15 or above? What is the punishment with a child in the vehicle? Okay. I want the possible punishments that are listed in this lecture and in the penal code. Okay. What is serious bodily injury caused by, in this question, I want you to put the definition and I want you to put the punishment. Okay. The punishment for intoxication manslaughter. What is that? What is the punishment for intoxication manslaughter? And, I also want the definition of intoxicated manslaughter. And then I want to know if there's a different punishment if you kill a law enforcement officer while he is on duty. So those are your questions that you have to answer. Just copy them, paste them into a Word document, answer the questions based upon my lecture and upon the Texas Penal Code, and then resubmit. Okay, so that's all we've got for this week. I will see you guys next Tuesday morning, not Monday. But I will record another video next Tuesday morning about this same time. But as always, you don't have to be here. I will post them in the announcements and you can watch them at your convenience.